introduction, let's go. But also, can we just observe how much the shoulders have come in from week 1 to 4? I hope that actually look, that's probably just me in my head being like, I've been hungry for 4 weeks, I better be doing something. Anyway, and action. Today marks week 4 of me being in a calorie deficit where I am aiming to drop body fat without making my life absolutely miserable. And well, things are getting pretty real because this last week has seen my greatest challenge yet as I was invited to head up north. That's a Cockney accent, to speak at the Manchester Fitness Expo, which required me being away for the weekend, networking, so socialising with lots of people, eating at lots of restaurants, and for a fitness expo, they have a lot of erotically tasting cookies. And pair that with it being the 4th week of this process, some of those little hunger goblins are starting to say hello, as I'm starting to physically feel the effects of being on lower food for an extended period of time. And today I am sharing exactly how I'm navigating those obstacles so that I can stay consistent with my goals. And I'm excited to take you for the cheeky ride. So strap in, let's get into it. So as ever, I am using the Bits app to track my progress so far, and these are the scores on the doors. So over the last 2 weeks, I have averaged 1,650 calories, 120 grams of protein, 11,000 steps. I've hit 3 weight training sessions both weeks, and over the last 2 weeks, I swam 3 times the first week and 1 time last week. Yes, that old age excuse of I didn't have enough time to get the 2nd and 3rd swim last week. We're going away for the weekend and a couple of personal bits coming up. Thank you, Mr. Man that tried to hack my Facebook for 2 days. You were wonderful. I compromised my swimming for my lifting and focused on laying the big bricks because I know the biggest movers of my goal right now are being in a calorie deficit, which is driven by my calories, protein and steps. And I know my biggest goals for my training is, as much as I'm enjoying swimming and want to improve my cardio, the priority is maintaining as much muscle mass as possible through my deficit. So when I had a pinch of time, I borrowed a bit of that time back from my swimming. We're back into it this week, it's all good. But just the average was a little lower than I thought it was gonna be this time last week. But where the devil has this got me? Again, looking at the Bits app. So 2 weeks ago, on the 14th of May, I weighed in at 72.8 kilograms. And this morning, exactly 2 weeks on from there, I'm weighing in at 70.9 kilograms. Of course, those are 2 little snapshots. So looking at the weekly averages, the week of the 12th, I averaged a weight of 72.8 kilograms, and I'm now averaging a weight of 71.2 kilograms, which is 1.5 kilograms down in 2 weeks, which is still bang on. There were 0.75 kilograms I randomly chose as my kind of goal over the 6-week cut. So on paper, things are moving pretty damn smooth, but how are things looking when you're looking at my bits? Filthy pervert. I'm pretty happy with how things are feeling and how things are looking. I definitely feel leaner. I'm catching a few lines on my shoulders and my biceps that I weren't seeing before. My trousers are definitely feeling looser. I actually zipped up a pair of jeans that I could not zip up 4 weeks ago, which is pretty fun. And considering I'm only 4 weeks in, I'm pretty fucking happy with how things are feeling and how things are looking. But yeah, it's not all sunshine of roses, and I definitely needed to do a few things to wiggle things forwards over these last couple of weeks. So let's get into the challenge of the bloody weekend, shall we? As I've already mentioned, I am looking to consume 16 to 1700 calories a day to stay consistently in the deficit I'm shooting to be in. And as every PT and their cat always says, you need to be consistent if you want to see results. Just the word consistency does seem to be thrown around a tad too much, and honestly I think the word alone without context offers about as much use as a fart in the wind. Because what does consistency look like? Is it 5 days being in a deficit and then 2 days doing what the hell you want? Because that's technically most of the week, no? So that's consistent. Or is it being completely perfectly on it every single day with no days off? Because but that is consistent. And honestly, I see with my clients a lot, they go one way or the other. They can define consistency as perfection and so don't have a day off and run themselves into the fucking ground. Or they can think consistency is, oh, well, I've been good all week, so the weekend doesn't really matter. And they end up shafting their progress every single week. So I'm gonna run through with you now exactly what consistency can look like, which means you can gain a bit more flexibility, but also keep those boundaries in place so you're not ruining your progress. Say in my example, I am looking to consume 16 to 1700 calories on average. So an easy way to look at that is to consume that amount of calories every single day without taking a day off. Stunning. So with this water coming up to this blue line, that's 16 to 1700 calories a day. If I consume equally all the way across the week, that's going to end me on between 11,200 to 11,900 calories. But you can absolutely have a little fiddle around and distribute your calories a little bit differently over the course of the week to allow for more flexibility. And that is exactly what I did last week. I knew I was away Friday through to Sunday. I knew I was going out for dinner all of these days. And I also knew, because I was speaking in public Saturday and Sunday, I wanted to not really have to worry about hunger and have a bit more energy about me. So ahead of time, I increased my calorie target for the weekend to be 2,000 calories each day. Ooh, almost spilled that. That left me with Monday to Friday needing to achieve a slightly lower average if I wanted to finish the week between the 16 to 1700 calorie mark. And I worked out that I needed to be somewhere between 1450 and 1550 across these days in order to poke those higher days in. Now, the way that I approach this is that Monday and Wednesday are my rest days, and I don't mind going a little bit lower in calories when I'm not having to go balls to the wall in training. So here I dipped a little bit lower onto 1400 calories, which meant the other 3 days I sat pretty comfortably at the 1600 calories, which felt pretty fucking damn all right. Now with this, I didn't completely know what was going to be going on over the weekend, and I gave myself permission for, if I went a little bit over, as I mentioned in last week's episode, I still have a big deficit that I can fall back on as a bit of a cushion, but I wanted to challenge myself and see if I could sit in between the lower calories as I targeted it. And honestly, with how things are flowing at the moment, I found this relatively comfortable to stick to. For sure, I found I had to make a couple of compromises, especially at the weekend where there were unbelievable amount of cookies. And these calories right here were pretty much bang on what I stuck to. Round of applause, I know. It generally felt pretty damn comfortable, and I'm chuffed that I actually stuck to what I said I was going to stick to. But there are a couple key things that I considered here, which I think you should consider if you're looking to approach something like this. The first thing is, I think it's really underrated to be proactive if you are tracking your food and looking to navigate your calories the way that I am. So often I see people go, oh, I'm just going to pick up my fitness pal and start tracking things as they go. And for sure, there's a bit of value in that, where you can start to understand the nutrition of the food that you're consuming. But taking that one step further and thinking, if say I'm needing to get my calories down a little bit lower, or if I'm going away at the weekend and I know there's going to be higher calorie situations coming in, can I forward plan a bit with my tracking? Because one of the biggest hacks people leave on the table when they're starting to track their food is to not be proactive about it. I'm not just talking about when you're trying to put a weekend away in, I'm talking about in general. As reducing calories can be quite challenging, but it becomes hard as heck if you're winging it to fuck. And if you can use tracking beyond just that tool that we're using to gain awareness of your calories, your macros, the food quality you're consuming, it can be really handy to map some shit out. On a day-to-day basis, especially on these days where I went a little bit lower on my food, I would have been fucked if I was just tracking as I went. And instead, what I did at the start of the day was I tracked my main meals and made a few tweaks to the portion sizes, such as reducing some starchy carb, increasing some veg, to manipulate the calories a touch. So I didn't get to the end of the day going, shit, I've eaten all my calories and it's already dinner time. And then coming over to the weekend, I knew I was going to be having dinner out both of those days, and I wanted just to sit and enjoy that and network with the people that I was hanging with at the expo. So with that, I penciled in 1200 calories for the meals out that I was planning to have. I didn't know exactly what meal it was I was going to be having, but I knew I'll be able to find mindful options that will get me in and around there. And then once I had that anchoring point of the higher calorie evening, I worked back through the rest of the day. Having 800 calories left for the rest of the day, I ended up going for a low calorie, high protein, high volume breakfast, aka Greek yogurt and fruit, a pretty light lunch, and even had room for half of the best cookie I've ever had before going out for dinner. Whereas if I were to have winged that weekend to fuck, the chance of me going way over my calories or feeling even anxious going out for the evening meal thinking, oh my God, does this fit within my goals or not, probably would have interfered. Whereas being proactive meant that I knew I had a flexible cushion that I could relax into, so I could not only stay consistent with my goals, but also have some fucking fun time socially, because I don't want to put my life on hold just to drop some body fat. That's boring. But the other thing that I'd recommend you try to avoid doing if you are looking to calorie bank, aka borrow calories from certain days to put them on another day, is to go even more aggressive than I have done here. I tried not to borrow much more than 10% of the calories that I'm normally aiming to consume, but even so, I sprinkled that within some high calorie days so it didn't feel as much effort. And a common mistake I see a lot of people make is that they go super low for days on end just to save a bit more calories for the weekend, meaning they get to the Friday, Saturday night completely starving off their tits, and they don't just go into the calories that they planned they were going to, but they keep on fucking going and just have a fuck ton more. I didn't. think that through. Fuck me, that's a mess. Not only fucking all the calorie deficit they might have worked up through the week and the lead up, but probably then filling themselves with guilt, shame, and self-doubt that they can complete this process, which is, yeah, where consistency tends to go to die. So as much as I advocate for borrowing a few calories here and there and looking at your week as a whole rather than how many days you're in a deficit in a row, try not to play silly buggers with this method. And if you find yourself drastically overeating at some parts during the week, see that you're allowing for at least enough joy to get you through the week that you don't feel like you need to run headfirst into a whole barrel of Baileys and Ben & Jerry's. But that actually leads me quite nicely into the next section, because as I've mentioned already, I am starting to feel a little bit of the hunger gremlins, which is no surprise. I'm 4 weeks into a deficit. I've dropped nearly 4 kilos. And weirdly, your body doesn't really like to reduce mass. So it is quite a normal mechanism to increase hunger signals the leaner you get. And just like we don't want to white knuckle this to the fucking death so we end up with situations like Splashgate over here, there's a few top tips that can help you really navigate your hunger, which has been a fucking godsend for me at the moment. So let's get into it. See, hunger is a freaking normal part of being in a calorie deficit. However, there's points of hunger that are tolerable and points of hunger that might shaft you. And a really useful tool to use underneath tracking your calories is something called the hunger scale. With the hunger scale, it's simply a scaling system to rate your hunger out of 1 to 10. So 1 could be so hungry you would literally kill a kitten in order to lick honey off someone's asshole. No judgments. 10 would be eaten so much you're probably feeling quite bloody sick and full of regret. 5 is not hungry at all. 4 would be just starting to get hungry. 3 going down to hungry. And 2 very hungry, but probably don't want to punch anyone in the face just yet. We have 6, 7, 8 and 9 being from when you start to feel full to fully satisfied and comfortable, to starting to feel slightly uncomfortable, to unbuttoning your jeans. I've run out of room. Now with this scale, you probably want to spend most of your time between 3 and 7. So the point where you are a little bit hungry and getting ready to eat, but not to the point of starvation where you will then want to eat a whole fucking horse, probably getting you up to here. And then when you are eating, not eating so much that you're getting beyond that point of comfort to feeling completely fucking stuffed, aka satisfied, not stuffed. And when you are in a deficit, you are wanting to build systems that are going to help you stay within this range as best as possible. So with that, that could be consuming enough protein, making sure you're getting protein in at each meal, making sure that we're getting low calorie, high volume foods in, preferably again at each meal. So that's things like your leafy green veg or certain fruits such as berries. Watermelon is my ultimate favorite here, but things that are going to fill up the stomach for not too many calories. And then to help with that further, it can help to have certain meal timing that suits you. For example, if you're consuming meals regularly at similar times each day, sometimes that can mean hunger can come and say a cheeky hello at consistent times each day, giving you more practice to manage it in those certain times. Anecdotally, that is something that I really do experience, and I find it much easier to stick to a deficit when I'm sticking to similar meals each day. But then even looking outside of what you eat and when you eat, improving your sleep can really help reduce hunger levels. As I stated at the start of the challenge, a really big goal for me was to improve sleep, and I have done this pretty effectively, and I can tell you it's made life a lot easier. And then there's the developing of the skill of recognizing when you're not actually hungry, but maybe you're just bored. And my best bit of advice for that is if you find that you are just feeling a little bit snacky, so maybe that 4 level on the hunger scale, but you've recently ate and you don't really feel like you should be hungry at that point, wait 20 to 30 minutes. See if the cravings for the snack pass. If they do, probably was boredom. If they don't and you're starting to edge towards 3 on the hunger scale, then that's a good time to maybe bring in a meal. But tuning into that hunger and tuning into your emotions around hunger is a really important skill that again can make life in a deficit a shit ton easier. But just so that I can set this realistic expectation for you, as much as I've mentioned this is the ideal place to be existing in, realistically, the leaner you get, the further down to this range you're going to exist in. And this is kind of where I feel like I'm getting now. Although I'm eating enough protein, although I'm eating lots of high volume foods, although I'm getting great sleep and my stress levels are pretty well managed and I'm pretty decent at tuning into hunger versus boredom, I'm still finding a significant amount of my time is spent here rather than here. Granted, I get a couple times a day where I'm here when I have a bigger meal, maybe in the evening, but there is a fair amount of time spent here. Just the place I'm wary of avoiding is getting down to here, which unless you're taking your lean list to extreme levels, which I am not, is for me just not really fucking worth it. So I am just noting if I'm getting to this point in case I need to bring a meal forwards, but so far I've been fine chilling and around here. And if you have never addressed your hunger, especially if you struggle with things like emotional eating, because if you pair this with eating slower when you are consuming your meals, it might prevent you from going to this stuffed, regretful place, as well as that point where you just feel like you want to punch every single person in the face. Something else that has really helped me stay consistent to my calories, even when that hunger goblin is coming to say hello a little bit, and on those days where motivation hasn't really felt shit hot, I have found it dead useful to have a system in place that means I don't have to think about things so much. And with that, I tend to find I eat pretty much the same thing for breakfast and lunch each day. Breakfast being either Greek yogurt and some fruit, or some oats and fruit, and then lunch being some chicken, salad and a flatbread. Or if I'm on the go, I'll get a meal deal that consists of a chicken salad sandwich, a cheeky little yogurt pouch and a diet soda, with all 4 of those options usually becoming between 400 to 500 calories and a whopping 50 grams of protein, meaning each and every day by the time I get to thinking about dinner, I'm already 100 grams of protein in, and I know I usually have 600 to 700 calories to play with, which is often enough for a decent meal and a sneaky little dessert. And even then, the dessert is often similar things, which is a flirty little low-calorie ice cream. And even in the last few weeks, the dinners have been taken care of by the Bits app. In case you're unaware, we released a new spicy little update where there's a ton of recipes that are high protein, decent on calories, and fucking banging for taste. These are recipes my coaches, myself, and my clients have used over the years to make sure that they get the stellar success that they have. And so that's the only meal that I'm having slightly different each day. But even then, I don't have to think about it too much because all the calories and macros and ideas are already done for me. And I think there's a lot of value for that. Think of it this way. When you were at school, if you went to school in the UK at least, we had to wear a school uniform each and every day. As boring as it was, it meant you didn't have to think about anything else in the morning. Maybe there's a few flirty tones you could add to it, like the piercings you could get away with, how short you could get your tie, or what shoes you would wear, but ultimately it was all from a very similar canvas. And it was only in the evenings and weekends that you would really have to think about what you wanted to wear to impress someone that you probably didn't even like. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything. But the amount of mental bandwidth that was required was so much less than when, for example, I went to college or into a place of work where I had to think about what I needed to wear every single day. And me, I don't really give a fuck what I look like, and it was just really exhausting, and I wish I'd kind of had a uniform back because I had so many other decisions I wanted to make, and what I wore was just not really something that I gave a damn about. Now, obviously you might give a damn about that, it might not relate to you, but the principle is still similar. Sometimes reducing your mental bandwidth by eating similar meals that you know are gonna just take care of your calories, take care of your protein, that you know you like the taste of, that is already tracked in MyFitnessPal a few times, so you can just copy and paste it over, can drastically reduce the amount of effort you need to put in, which can bring out more outcome. As I say, I still like to have a slightly different dinner each day, because if I add the same thing each and every day, all the fucking time, I'll be bloody bored. But having at least a few staples in your day, which you're having consistently, that get the job done, can make a life a lot easier. So we're now heading into the final 2 weeks of the first phase of my fat loss journey. So I've got 2 more weeks of pushing at the lower calories before having my diet break to help me go and piss about on a field during my music festival, as well as another week of just general maintenance before I go into the second phase, which is my slow, steady and more chilled approach to fat loss. So the next video will be taking you through how I feel as a whole after 6 weeks of pushing on slightly lower food than I would normally, how I feel about my end result there, as well as taking you for the ride of setting up a diet break so that you can start to eat more food without worrying about gaining all your weight back, which, by the way, is the bit that all you scallywags miss when you are thinking about sustainable change. So I'm excited for that one. But for now, I've got a couple more weeks of wiggling. I'll see you in the next one. Love you, bye.